Okay, AP, please take out your questions, your sample questions, 54 questions, and we're starting with the questions not based on oral stimulus right now. Number 33 is first. The key signature above is for, well, you have to know your key signatures, and you have to know it kind of quickly. C sharp minor would be 4 sharps. D major would be 2 sharps. E major would be 4 sharps. F sharp minor would be 3 sharps, because the relative major is A major. So 33, the correct answer would be D for 33. Let's move on to 34. Okay, the scale that is shown above is well, look at the clef. That's very important. You have tenor clef. So our starting note is a C. Hopefully you realize that. And then you could begin to do something like this and notice that these are all whole steps, which means 34 is A, the whole tone scale. Question 35, which of the following rhythms is beamed correctly? Well, you'll have to realize the time signature. It's 12/8, so we're dealing with compound quadruple, 4 beats to the measure, each beat divided by 3. We want to definitely show the midpoint, and we want each beat to be very clearly written. So if we look at 35A, I'll circle beat 1. There it is. Beat 2. And remember, we want to keep, each beat should have the equivalent of 3/8 notes. So there's beat 3 and there's beat 4. Actually, 35A looks really good. Let me rule out the others just to make sure. Let's take a look at D for a second. So here's beat 1. Okay. And here's beat 2, but beat 2 is connected to beat 3 right here. And beat 3 is connected to beat 4 right there. Right, there's where my beats are. So I'm ruling out D. I can rule out C because if I look here, there's beat 1. But there's beat 2, which is also connected to beat 3. That should not be connected right there. And beat 3 is connected to beat 4. If we look at B, we have this, beat 1. Here's beat 2, but beat 2 is connected to beat 3. I'm not liking that. And we don't really see that. That would be more connected together right there instead of those 2/8 notes by themselves. And then that. So I'm going with 35 is A, is the correct answer. Let's move on. Okay, so for question 36, the notes above are contained in which of the following pairs of scales? Well, you have to know your key signatures. Look at the notes carefully. We're in treble clef, E, F sharp, G sharp, A natural. Can't be B major because B major has an A sharp in it, so rule out A. 36B, A major and C sharp harmonic minor. It could certainly be A major, sol la ti do at the top, and it could be C sharp harmonic minor as well. I'll put a little dash next to that. I think that might be the answer. Let's rule out the others. 36C, we have D major. Can't be D major because there's no G sharp in D major. Rule out C. And let's see, 36D. It could be E major, but it can't be F sharp harmonic minor because when in F sharp harmonic minor, you need a leading tone, and the leading tone of F sharp harmonic minor would be an E sharp, but we have an E natural. So the correct answer for 36 is actually B. For question 37, the chord above is an example of, so let's take a look at it carefully. Write down your chord tone super quick. A flat, C, F flat. Rearrange them into superimposed thirds, which I've just done, and realize that that's a major third and a major third. So when you have a major third stacked on top of a major third, the interval must be augmented. 37 is C. Let's move on. Question 38. The correct analysis of the chord above is, write down your tones, D flat, B flat, A flat, F. Rearrange them into superimposed thirds, and looks like you'll have a B flat, D flat, F, A flat. I'm going to quickly do my 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2. And now I can realize the quality of this 7th chord. B flat, D flat, F is minor, and then B flat to A flat is a minor 7th. This is a minor 7th chord. So I can rule out B and I can rule out D immediately because of the major 5. It's not a major 5. It's either the 2-6-5 or the 2-4-2 in either of those keys. Let's examine D flat major first. In the key of D flat major, spell the 2 chord. E flat, G flat, B flat, D flat. Well, it can't be that because I have no G flat in these chords, right, in these tones right here. So let's check A flat in the key of A flat major. What I'm doing is verifying A right now is my choice because I think 38 is A. In the key of A flat, the 2 chord is B flat, D flat, F, A flat. So far so good. But 38A has a 2-6-5. So there's my 2-6-5 with the D flat in the bass. The correct answer for 38 is A. Let's move on. Question 39, the interval shown above is, well, if you don't like that A sharp next to that note, and by the way, it is an A sharp, not an F sharp, make sure you watch your clef very carefully. Let's scribble that sharp sign out, shall we? Now it's a minor 7th. That looks better to my eyes. A to G is a minor 7th, but when we add the sharp, we actually make the interval smaller, we contract it. So we're going from a minor 7th, A to G, contracting 1/2 step, making it smaller. When you do that, you go from minor to diminished. So 39 must be C. If you wanted to also, you could also try to invert this. For example, think of taking the A sharp and putting the A sharp up here, and then you would have an A2, which by the way is forbidden in part writing. Haha. And you know that the equivalent of an A2 is a diminished 7th. For question 40, let's move on. What type of cadence and a non-harmonic tone are illustrated above? So if you're still unsure about non-harmonic tones, non-chord tones, because we're still studying that right now, then you could certainly use your knowledge of cadences to answer this question. First of all, realize the key. That's going to help you. Are we in F major or D minor? Hopefully you said D minor because of the C sharp right there. So I'll just do that really quick, and then I could sort of do a quick analyzation of the chords. It looks like a major 5 to the minor 1. Look at the bass. We're going sol to do. So far it's a perfect authentic. And since tonic is D, the soprano ends on D. I've just determined that this is a perfect authentic cadence. I'm pretty sure my answer is B. I want to rule out the others. It can't be A because it's not imperfect, because the bass is going sol do and the soprano ends on do. It can't be a deceptive cadence because for deceptive cadences we have to see the 5-6 progression. For 40C, it can't be plagal because we would then have to see the 4-1, or in this case the minor 4, the minor 1, and we don't see that. So I'm still going with B, even if you don't know what an escape tone is. But I happened to put right here in this little box what an escape tone is. An escape tone, or a paché, is a particular type of unaccented, there's a key word, unaccented, incomplete neighbor tone that is approached stepwise and resolved by a skip. So, which tone in this example is the escape tone? Well, hopefully you said right here, this F in the soprano is the escape tone. Do you see how, first of all, it's on an unaccented part of the beat, and it's approached by a step, going from the E before it up to the F, and then it's resolved downward by skip. So we call that an escape tone. So the correct answer for 40 would be B. And if you didn't get it through the non-harmonic tone, then hopefully you certainly at this point will be able to get that it's a perfect authentic cadence. Let's move on. Questions 41 through 43 are based on the chord progression printed below. Let's look at 41. Deals with measure 1. So, all of the following part writing errors are found in measure 1, except we're going to find lots of errors in measure 1. Do we see parallel octaves? Yes, we do, right here between the bass and the alto. We have octave Ds to octave Cs. So, we're going to rule that one out. 41B, do we see a double leading tone in measure 1? Well, look at your key. We're in the key of D major. That means our leading tone is C sharp. And look at that, on beat 2 I have 2 C sharps. The alto singing a C sharp and the bass is singing a C sharp. We never want to double the leading tones, ever. So right there are my leading tones. I'm going to cross that out. 41C. Do we have any voice crossing that happens here? Not so much. I'm not really seeing that. I'm going to put a dash next to C. I think that's my choice. 41D, I'm looking for an omitted third in one of these chords. Let's see. There's the third in the soprano for chord 1. Okay. Oh, if I look here in chord 4, I have 3 Gs and I have 1 D. I've omitted the B. We can cross that one out. The correct answer for 41 is C. There is no voice crossing in measure 1, but you do have parallel octaves, a double leading tone, and an omitted third. For question 42, we need to locate one part writing error found in measure 2. So let's take a look. 42D we can rule out right away because the spacing is actually correct. Look very carefully in measure 2 and you see that the upper voices, soprano, alto, and bass, do not exceed an octave. So that's totally fine. And 42C, a doubled leading tone. That means we're going to probably look at the first beat of measure 2 right here that I'm circling. That's the 5-4-2 because that would be where a leading tone could be. Also, there's a leading tone here in the 5-6, right? Remember, the leading tone is C sharp in the key of D major, but I'm not seeing it doubled, so we can rule that one out. Let's look at 42A. Do we see parallel fifths anywhere in measure 2 when we compare going from chord to chord? I'm not seeing any. This is very nice voice leading here. I've compared all voices, soprano and alto. Then I've compared soprano and tenor. And I've compared alto with tenor. I've compared alto with bass. I've compared bass with tenor and bass with the soprano. 6 different ways. No parallel fifths, which leaves me with the error being an unresolved 7th. So the 7th chord, remember, is right here. And this is a sing the song and you can't go wrong type of thing. We have a 5-4-2, which is the 7th chord, which happens to be in third inversion, which means the 7th is actually, the 7th of that 7th chord is in the bass, Fa, which is G right here that I'm circling in the key of D. And Fa needs to go to Mi, and it doesn't, because the next chord, it goes to a 1. If it went to a 1-6, then it would be resolved correctly. So the correct answer for 42 is B. Question 43 was a little bit tricky. Which of the following reorderings of measure 3 would most improve the cadential preparation, taking into account the voice leading into and out of measure 3? Well, look at right before measure 3. Right here you have a 5-6. 5 loves to go to 1, especially if it's 5-6 in inversion, because then it's just very smooth singing for the basses. So my guess would probably be that I want to keep that 5-6. I want to keep that 1 chord first in measure 3 on beat 1, because the chord right before it, the last chord of measure 2, is a 5-6, and we know that 5s love to go to 1s. Okay? So 5s do not like to go to 2-6-5. I'm going to rule out B for that answer. Also, you might want to also think about this circle of fifths, circle progression hotline, because this is really what is the most common progression that's used and the one that works out just the best. See how 5 loves to go to 1? Okay, so now I'm looking carefully, and I can also look at this question by doing the solfege and figuring out what my bass notes are going to be. So for A, I'm going to be, if it's 1-6-5, 2-6-5 to 1, that means I'm going to have Mi to Sol to Fa to Do that the basses would sing. B we've already ruled out. That would be Fa, and then the 1 chord, they would sing Do. Then the 1 inversion, the basses would sing Mi, and then Sol. For C, it would be Sol, Fa, Mi, Do. And for D, it would be Do, Mi, Fa, Sol. So actually, the best one would be D. And why is that? Because you have this progression, you have do, mi, fa, sol, and that's a great cadential preparation before the final one chord in measure 4. So I'm going with D as my correct answer, the best option. If we rearranged those, reordered those chords in measure 3, that would improve the cadential preparation, because we're going to end on that 5 chord and not that 2, 6, 5 chord. So 43 is D. Let's move on. Questions 44 through 49 are based on the musical example below. Let's check out question 44. The harmonic progression in measures 1 through 4 is best analyzed as. So make sure that you're looking very carefully in measures 1 through 4. First, you might want to identify the key that we're in. So we have 1 flat. We could be in the key of F major. We could be in the key of D minor. I'm going to go with F major. Hopefully you realize that too, right? Looks like this is a nice arpeggiated tonic chord right here. And then in my second measure, I have B flats, G, B flat, and Ds. So in the key of F, G, B flat, and D could be my 2 chord. Let me see, I have G, B flat. I'm putting dots next to them. G, B flat, D, and there's my F. That can actually be an arpeggiated 2/7 chord. Interesting. So I can already rule out 44B because it doesn't go from the 1 to the 5/7. If it went to the 5/7 in measure 2, then it would be C, E, G, B flat. I'm not seeing that at all in measure 2, so that's why I ruled out B as an option. I am interested though in C for number 44 because I just realized that it opens up with the tonic chord arpeggiated in measure 1, and then I realized that there's G, B, D flat, and F in measure 2, and that looks like it's my 2/4/2. Let's go on and see if measure 3 is the 5/6/5 of the key of F major. So in measure 3 right here, I'm just going to write them over here. I'm looking at what appears to be C, E's, I see G's, and I do see a B flat there at the very end of. That B natural is just going to be a lower neighbor tone, a non-chord tone. So it looks like this happens to be the notes that I see, and that is indeed a 5 chord, a 5/7 chord in the key of F. And I'm going to do, it says 5/6/5, and that's because right here, on beat 1, the strong beat, we have the E. That's the lowest note. So there's my 5/6/5. And then measure 4, I'm headed back to the 1 chord, which is what I find in measure 1, the same thing. My best choice for 44 is going to be C. That's exactly what I'm seeing there, those chord progressions. And it's just arpeggiated, that's all it is, rather than have it be harmonic at the same time, like SATB voices. It's just a Roman numeral analysis with an arpeggiation. That's all it is. So 44 is C. Let's check out 45. The lowest voice in measure 11 through 14, I've put a box around 11 through 14, and the lowest voice would be right here. I'm circling that pitch, a C. And look it's a C throughout all 4 of those measures, while the other voices above it change. Actually, look at the chromatic passing tone. You have a C, then you have a B natural, then you have a B flat, but that's not the lowest voice. The question is concerned about the lowest voice in measures 11 through 14, and the correct answer would be A, a pedal tone. Let's move on. Question 46. The chords in measures 20 through 24 are all, and if you look carefully, over here, I've blown up just those measures, so I don't have to go back to the last frame, but I do want to point something out. We're dealing with measures 20 through 26. Did you notice what happened in measure 15? Right here, I'm circling it. The left hand is now in treble clef. Look at that, treble clef. So hopefully you're analyzing both hands in treble clef when you're looking at notes here. So now we're going to look at these measures, 20 through 24, and I've put them on the next page. We want to know if all of those chords are either secondary dominants, first inversion triads, anacrusis, or tonic substitutes. Well, anacrusis, what a bogus answer. Not pickups. Tonic substitutes? I don't think so. I'm just going to rule out the ones that I think are completely laughable. 46 is either probably A or B. So let's check it out. Remember, we're in treble clef here, right? So I've got a C, B, C, A, B, C. I'll just do that measure. And up here I have an E, A, then I have a D, G, then I have an E, A again, then I have a D, G again, and an E, A again. If I rearrange those tones right there into superimposed thirds, then I would be looking at like an ACE triad here. I'd be looking at a GBD triad here. It looks like measure 20 is all first inversion triads. Let's do one more measure just to be sure. I'll do measure 22. G, A, G, F, E, F. Up here I've got B, E. That's definitely a first inversion. And here I got C, F. And let me check one out over here. I've got D, A, and then I have, D, F, B. That's first inversion. And here in measure 23, I have E, G, C. That's first inversion. The correct answer for 46 is B. 46. The chords in measures 20 through 24 are all first inversion triads. Okay, the cadence at measure 25 is, and here I have it, right here I'll circle measure 25. Remember, we're in the key of F major, so I can just quickly look across and see when I get to here, I'm back in bass clef at measure 23. It goes back to bass clef. So I have a C, E, and a B flat. That is a seventh chord with an omitted fifth. Remember, we can omit the fifth occasionally. That's okay, just not the third and not the seventh of the seventh chord. So it appears that the cadence at measure 25, if we're in the key of F and I have a C, E, B flat, is going to be a half cadence. The correct answer in the tonic. And all that means is in the tonic, which means F major. So it's a half cadence in the tonic because it's C. Okay, we can rule out Phrygian cadence. That only happens in minor keys. Deceptive cadence. If that was a deceptive cadence right there in measure 25 in the key of F, then my pitches would have to be like D, F, A, because that would be the sixth chord. I'm not seeing that at all there. And it's not an imperfect authentic cadence because there's an E and a B flat. If it was imperfect authentic cadence, we would still have to have the tones F, A, and C in that triad. Okay, so for question 48, this is a question on form. Remember, form is the big picture of the piece. Which of the following best represents the form of the piece? So for 48A, it looks like we have the A section repeated and then the A section again repeated. For 48B, we have the A section repeated, then we have a B section and an A prime section repeated. That figure next to the A there in choice B is called prime, A prime. That means it's not an exact replication or duplication of A, but there are very similar parts to the A section, maybe just incomplete. For 48C, we have the A section repeated, and then we have a B section, C section, and D section all repeated. And for 48D, we have an A-B section repeated, and then a B-A prime section repeated. So I've gone back to my music, and actually on the left-hand side, I put our four choices for the question, so we can see them very carefully. So the form of the piece will always begin with either an introduction or the A section right away. So that's very clear that the opening, remember we're in F major, I'll do that. The opening we have, this is the A section right here, we start out. And we're going along and we're looking at the accompaniment style. Looks like broken accompaniment style, arpeggiated chords. And then what's interesting too is here, in the left hand, now the broken arpeggiated accompaniment travels up to the right hand, and the right hand in the first four measures sort of travels down to the left hand in the next four measures. So that's all the same section because the same type of rhythmic devices are happening. I would say that when we get to this repeat sign at measure 10, that would be the end of the A section. Now, the pickup, or anacrusis to measure 11, right here is going to start our B section. And how do I determine that that's a new section? Well, look at the left hand. You have the accompaniment style changing. Now you have this pedal tone, which we know about from the other question. We have longer notes in the left hand. And this is still going to be the B section over here, because right here is going to switch hands again, where you have the chromatic passing tones in the right hand, while your right hand at the beginning of the B section travels to your left hand. So all of this section is B, and then if you look here at the very end here of the third system, measures 23, 24, 25, we have what looks like how the B section started. So this is where the B section is going to end, right here. And if you look carefully right here, where I put a little star at measure 26, we have seen 26, we've seen 27, we've seen 28, we've seen 29 before. We've even seen the rest of this right here. The whole third line is just like the opening A section. And there are repeat dots. So the repeat dots go back to the B section right here. So the overall form of this piece is, and now I'm going to just erase things so you can see it just a little bit easier. A section. Repeated. B section. A section. Repeated. So the correct answer is going to be B. Now, it's an A prime that's repeated, because right here is not the entire A section repeated, it's just a little bit different. Where does it start changing things? Well, measure 30 is identical to measure 5, but then the very ending right here, the last few measures, differs from up here. So we can't call it an exact replication or duplication of A, but most of the material is there, the same harmonic devices for the most part, and the same accompaniment style with that broken arpeggiation. So the correct answer for this one is B. Let's move on. For question 49, which of the following compositional devices is featured prominently throughout the excerpt? We know about melodic sequence. Motivic fragmentation would mean just certain tiny bits and segments of particular rhythms. Number C, letter C, rhythmic transformation, a drastic change in rhythm. I don't think that's the case. And stretto you might not be familiar with. Stretto, I put over here. Stretto is a passage, especially at the end of an aria or movement, to be performed in quicker time. So there's no indication on the music that the music is to be performed, as an accelerando. We're not speeding up or anything like that. But I do see melodic sequence happening predominantly throughout this. Look at measure 1 right here. Then look at measure 2. You have a sequence of notes, and they're all going up by seconds. And that also happens in the B section, where you have the notes traveling up by seconds. And here in the left hand as well, up by seconds. This one's long. Look at all those. That's a melodic sequence. It's traveling up by seconds. And you even have it here in the A section, left hand. And finally here, when we have the return to A prime. So that's all of your melodic sequence. The best answer for this one would be A. Melodic sequence is the compositional device that's featured prominently throughout this excerpt. Okay, these next set of questions might have been more difficult for you because we haven't studied them as much. But let's see how we can do by process of elimination and use what we know. Question 50, segment B derives from segment A by, don't let that question confuse you. It's kind of like a compare and contrast question. You know, you have segment A, and then how does segment B differ? Or what's the same with segment B when you compare it to segment A? That's all it is. So look at segment A first and see what you have. Segment A is up here. You have this melody. Look at the rhythm, look at the melody. Ascending, the general contour of the melody of A, segment A, would be like this. Look at B. You have the same basic melodic contour. Now look at the rhythms very carefully. Rhythms, pretty much the same. You've got your 16th notes here. You've got your 3/16 notes here. You have your dotted eighth. You have the tie. Okay, so melodically, it's the same, but it's not the same exact pitch, if you notice. The first three notes of segment A are A flat, C flat, E flat. The first three notes of segment B would be F flat, A flat, C flat. So although the contour, the overall shape of the melody is the same, it's not an exact replication of the melody. So based on that information, let's see what our choices are. Segment B derives from a segment A by, well, it could be imitation. It's not a melodic inversion because remember that both segment A and segment B had the same general contour. So we're going to cross that out. It wasn't a repetition because although the rhythms were precise, the pitches were not repeated. And the rhythm did not transform and change drastically. We actually had the same rhythms happening. So B imitates A. Let's see it again. A right here. And then here's where B is. So that's just an imitation. Or it happens just a little bit after, segment B happens a little bit after segment A. So by process of elimination and going with what we know, we were able to deduce that question 50 is A. Segment B derives from segment A by imitation. Now we're going to look at segment D and segment C. And the word we probably don't really know yet out of these choices would be retrograde. But when you hear retro, what comes to mind? Think about that. Augmentation, we know that is some kind of increase in maybe a rhythmic value. Imitation, we already have a good handle of imitation, copycatting. And melodic inversion, let's say one section might be that, the next section contour might be that. That's what it means to invert a melody. So let's look at segment C first. Here's segment C. Tiny. And then here's segment D. So same rhythm. The contour of segment C. The contour of segment D. Do you notice something? The contour is inverted in those sections. So it's not imitated. We can cross out imitation because really they're happening at the same time. When you imitate, you usually have one after the other. So let's get rid of imitation. There was no increase in rhythmic value, so we can rule out A for number 51. But I'm going with C, melodic inversion, simply because when we looked at the contour and we represented the contour with these lines, C went up, down, and D went down, up, up. So the melody was inverted. Now let's talk about retrograde. I've pulled up a definition of retrograde. Retrograde is a musical term that literally means backwards and upside down. That's all you need to know for now. We're going to study retrograde pretty soon. But retrograde is a musical term that literally means backwards and upside down. So if you go back and look at segment D and segment C, It's not backwards and upside down. It's not a retrograde. We'll talk more about retrogrades in the future. Let's move on. Question 52. Segment E derives from segment D by augmentation, an increase in rhythmic value. 52B, melodic inversion, which we know about. 52C, literal repetition. Literal means exact. It must be exact. And 52D, sequence. So let's look at segment E and segment D. We'll look at segment D first. Let's go back, and I'm going to erase segment C, and we're looking at segment E and segment D. So here's E, and here's D. Well, right off the bat, you can see which one is longer, and that's because E has longer durational rhythms. Are the pitches the same? Pitches are the same. D starts out with an F flat, E flat, F flat. E starts out with F flat, E flat, F flat. Segment D ends with C to E flat. Segment E ends C to E flat. Interesting. So I'm probably going with augmentation here because you can see that the rhythmic value of E has increased. In D, you have 3/16 notes that start off, and in segment E, you have 3/8 notes that start off. Yet the melody is still the same. So let's go back and see our choices. It could be A, and that's what I'm leaning towards. It's not a melodic inversion. It's not an exact literal repetition, and it's not a sequence. So segment E derives from segment D by augmentation. And let's just look at that one more time. So segment E really is twice as long as segment D. Segment E was rhythmically augmented when compared to segment D. That wasn't too bad. Let's look at 53. Segment G derives from segment A by A, diminution. Well, diminution is now the opposite of augmentation. So it's not going to be an increase in rhythmic value, it will be a decrease in rhythmic value. 53B, melodic inversion. 53C, rhythmic transformation. And 53D, transposition. Transposition, fancy word for modulation. Perhaps a change of tonality, change of key, things like that. So now we're comparing G with A. So first let's look at A, and we'll go back, and here's G. Let's get the contour first. So the contour of A we already know from the previous question. Up and then down. The melodic contour up and then down. So the contour is the same in both of these segments. Now let's look at the pitches carefully. Compare pitch by pitch, and we notice that the pitches are identical. The contour doesn't change, but we might have some rhythmic transformation happening here, because although we have some 16th notes, we do have some rests included in segment G, where segment A contains no rests. So I'm going to be leaning towards, for 53, towards C, that there's a change in rhythmic transformation. It can't be transposition because the notes we said were identical. It's not diminution, and here's why. We still have pretty much your 16th notes in both segment G and segment A, so diminution is not the choice. The melody is not inverted because we realize that both the general shape and contour of the melody were the same. So the correct answer for 53 would be C, rhythmic transformation. And it's not a big rhythmic transformation, it's a slight rhythmic transformation, if you look carefully, with a few rests in between. But you have the same exact pitches, just the rhythm is transformed. So the correct answer for 53 would be C, rhythmic transformation. Let's move on to question 54. Question 54, segment F, and they actually reprinted it above, which is nice, so we can see it much clearer. Segment F, reprinted above, derives from segment E by, and our choices are augmentation, retrograde, which we've talked about briefly, backwards and upside down, C, literal repetition, exact repetition, or D, transposition, a change in tonality or change in key or change in pitch. So let's look at segment E first, and then we can compare it to segment F. So let's examine segment E first. F flat, E flat, F flat, C, E flat. Let's examine segment F. Looks like we have an F flat. That is an F flat. E flat, F flat, C, E flat. The pitches are the same, which means the contour is the same. Let's go back and look at what our choices are. So it's not going to be retrograde, it's not backwards and upside down. It's not a literal repetition. It's not transposed because the pitches are the same. The rhythm, I believe, is augmented. So let's go back and double check. So the rhythmic value has increased. And there you have it.